All right, recording has started. Before we begin today, are there any opens or questions that people have that we'd like to talk about?
Oh, hello. I'm Martin, and I have a question. Is there an agenda for these meetings? Believe so.
Yes, there normally is an agenda. Well, I wouldn't say normally there is. Usually we just have a continuation of topics that
Mm-hmm.
that goes from week to week. So last week I hosted and I put up the minutes a bit late, but they're up now. So for example, what I would do in terms of our topics today is I'd go look at those minutes and see what we need to follow up on, and then take any new opens or topics that we'd like to start today.
Okay. Because I've been working on with Richard Hughes from LBFS.
Hmm.
Um, I sent a patch a few months back about adding SBOM to the EFI binaries. Um, I got suggested to bring this topic here so you can help me to get it done because the patch is working, but it's kind of hacky the way I did it, and for now it's Linux only, so it needs work to be merged. Um, and I went to one of the community meetings, and they suggested me to come here so we can work on that.
Okay. Yeah, I think for that topic, that's something we've talked about in the past.
Hmm.
We would probably want to schedule that for a dedicated session. Um,
Oh,
so once you, I mean, if you want to talk about like it, and do you have like a formal presentation, or are you just looking for like some feedback and sharing what you
oh,
have with people?
yeah, that's what I have. I'd like to share to you what I've done, show you the patch.
Okay. I think we can do that today if you're
Oh,
interested in doing that.
yeah, today I don't have the time for doing it. I was I just wanted to ask about the agenda and the stuff. It's quite late here, and I have to go in a couple of minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I think just whenever go on to the discussions page on EDK2 for the meeting, and
Mm-hmm.
just at Sean Brogan, because he's the normal organizer of this meeting. You'll see him. He posts like all of the notes on there. Just at him and try to arrange a time for your for you to schedule that topic, and I think we
Oh,
can get it done.
okay, awesome. Okay,
All right. Yeah. Thanks for
great.
joining.
Now, thank you. Bye, guys.
All right. Let's go into. Are there any other topics? I do know that obviously Sean won't be here today. I got a note from Mike Kinney that he would not be here as well, and a few others actually sent some notes. So I think we're gonna have a pretty light audience overall. I do have some follow-up items. Most of them involve Mike Kinney, though. Um, Let me see if there's anything else on the list here. So we had talked in the past about XUnit and Google Test. Nate Desimone and Mike Kinney from Intel were going to add that support. They were targeting end of November to get the initial framework in place. Um, there was an OpenSSL topic that we had. We talked about some of the challenges integrating crypto package, and Mike Kinney mentioned he was clarifying the README on how to better integrate that. He was also making some changes to the INFs in order to better integrate and kind of follow our normal coding guidelines a bit better there. I had the CodeQL update. Um, CodeQL overall is, I guess I can update again. Uh, Essentially, what I'm working on right now is we have the tool called Stewart that we use to build. It's like you can use the build command in EDK2. You can also use from EDK2 PyTool extensions, which is part of Tiano Core, there's a tool called Stewart, which is more of like a, it's kind of like a Python wrapper based build system around the normal build command. And that's where I'm integrating some support for CodeQL. The idea, like I said last week, is I'll turn on CodeQL in the project once I complete that, because I don't want to turn on CodeQL on the server side without having a local developer experience where developers can easily build CodeQL databases and test queries against the database. So I think that's going to be needed in order for us to actually fully leverage the support on the server side. That's a bit involved, but I am kind of getting toward the finish line on that. See if there's anything else here. We talked about GitHub pull requests. That's something else that Mike was working on. VS Code Dev containers. So one of the things we have going on, the Tiano Core containers repo, is we have containers getting pushed to a GitHub container registry there. You can already pull those down with something like Docker and work in them on your local system. We had talked about potentially adding VS Code Dev containers to the EDK2 project so that whenever people open the project and something like VS Code, they would have their workspace set up, in a very consistent, reproducible fashion. So we'd pull down the container image, we would install a set of extensions, we might make some other small adjustments to the workspace, with the idea being that if people were to use our dev container, we could have a more consistent, kind of easy to get going experience for working with EDK2. That's one that a few people are working on that I'm aware of, but I don't think that's being tracked very heavily. If there's a lot of interest in that, we should file a discussion or something on the EDK2 discussion page. Right now, I think that's kind of being done as more of a side thing, but kind of interesting. I think those are the most of the items that I see. Does anyone?
Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't add the topic in anywhere, but I had a broad topic question. I guess I'm wondering if we have some kind of language server support in Tiano Core, and I didn't see it. And if not, what would be involved, do you think, in creating a language server so that it's easy to like control click and find the exact library code that you're using? That would be pretty nice. Sometimes that's hard to get.
Yeah, I think others here can feel free to, of course, add their comments. I'll just say what I know. Within VS Code, I use the EDK2 extension, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah.
That one provides like basic INF, DSC, DEC, syntax highlighting. I'm not sure if it does much more than that, but I have, with a full set of like C and C++ extensions, my control clicking works pretty well. It like
Yeah, but it'll still alias between the PEI, Dixie, and SMM, for example.
Yeah, it will, because it doesn't know necessarily how to link those. So yeah, it's generally what I like. For me, it's not a big deal. I'll click and then I'll know, like, it'll give me the option of the different instances, and then I'll know which phase to go to. But I agree that it would be really nice to have something more formal that could like properly navigate the code tree for us based on what's in the build files and things like that. But I'm not aware of anyone that's done more than like the EDK2 extension.
Yeah. Another nice thing that would be like if you could right click on a protocol in an INF and say like find all the instances of the squid, something, rather than having to like search through the code. Like where was it actually used the last time it was compiled? So
yeah.
I guess if we wanted to do that, we'd have to have we'd have to extend the base tool somehow, right? Or have some it would not only have to run and have understanding of all the INF, DSCs, whatnot, but also it would have to run in the background, right? And it'd have to be continuously compiling whatever or parsing whatever you're working on, right?
I would think so. I'm not an expert, but I think you would have to first of all build up a set of parsing scripts like what we have in EDK2 toollib. I think that's where they're at. There's generic code there to be able to build objects representing different files and to be able to parse different file types. Like you can basically say, make a DSC object, and from that DSC object, give me the IA32 library classes or whatever you want to query from it and that kind of stuff. So I'd imagine there'd be a lot of like general parsing and infrastructure that we'd have to set up, probably most of which is already written in random places in Python, whether it's EDK2 base tools or PyTool extensions or wherever, or other places. And then once we get like an actual object model kind of set up to be able to model everything, yeah, you'd probably have to go through and run that, right, and be able to parse and detect what's active in the project.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice. I guess you're right, though. You'd have to think most of it is in the PyTool extensions, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a lot in there right now, and I know that in there's several Python scripts that rely upon the generic code there. They just import it and use it to like find things in FDFs and DSCs and things like that.
But even still, even if you were just reading through the INFs, you'd have to go through the logic of like parsing the deck files so you could figure out like how the deck, the DSC, and the FDF, so that you can figure out which pieces are actually getting used at build time, right?
Yeah.
So it would actually be better to integrate that into the base tools, wouldn't it? Or at least
well, it
have
depends.
base tools produce some kind of output that could be understood by the tool.
Well, I think it depends. Like there's this movement now to move base tools to EDK2 base tools. So that I guess you could still call that base tools. But I think the base tools are generally the things that are required to build the actual code. And they're tools that are fundamental to building and things like that. The EDK2 PyTool extension stuff is exactly that. It's like extensions. And I guess you could organize it however you want, but we'd probably just want one version of the generic code to be able to parse the different file types. There's already code today that, because of the way that we check to see, we have things like PR evaluation, right? Where people submit a set of files in a pull request, and we have to determine what packages to build. So that logic today, there is already some level of logic today that knows how to go through INFs and map that back to DECs and that kind of a thing and figure out what's being built. So I wouldn't really say like that's all stuff that needs to be written from scratch or anything. It's just a matter of putting it together and being able to connect that in VS Code.
You said detect the packages. Which pipe? I guess that would be in the EDK2 pipelines. Where's that in the Azure pipelines definition?
It's called, well, within Steward, it's called PR evaluation. I don't know what the file name is, but you should be able to find it somewhere.
I've used Steward, but I haven't actually. But with it, Steward is in the PyTools extension or the PyTools library, right? Or is it checked into the base tools? Where's the source code for it?
I think it's in PyTool extensions. You'll see like a big mouse on the README page whenever you go there, and that's the Steward stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And then you had a PR gate, you said?
PR. It's called PR evaluation. Is what the feature is called. I think Nate also has some experience here. I don't know if he has anything worth mentioning or not, but um, I guess Nate, the topic that Eric brought up was writing like a language server or better support for VS Code to be able to detect what instances of library classes and things like that you're actually using. So then we were talking about the need to go and parse all the build files like the DSCs and the DECs and stuff to be able to figure that out. And
Yeah, that would be handy.
yeah,
Yeah,
my,
I mean,
my point was there's a lot of logic out there.
yeah, but
today.
fundamentally, Base Tools has to know how to parse all that stuff. Otherwise, it couldn't work, right? I think the problem we've all run into is just that Base Tools does not have a good API for accessing its parser. And by good API, I mean an API in existence.
Yes.
Yes.
But I to the point where I don't know, at least last time I checked, the PyTools extensions stuff tried to implement a completely separate parser that has an API, but that parser, as far as I can tell, isn't 100% correct 100% of the time.
Yeah.
In what regards have you found it to be incorrect?
It seems like it doesn't evaluate the conditional preprocessor statements quite the same way that Base Tools does.
The Base Tools have a plan to standalone all the parsers from the build. Yeah, and currently we are working on the DSC parser, and we try to split the DSC parser from the build and standalone it. And after that, we will try to do the INF parser, the DEC parser, and the FDF parser, and to split all of them from the build, and to use the build to be the entry and call all these parser. And after all the standalone work's done, we can use the one of the parser to parse the one kind of the file. And I think after all this work done, it will be better for the developers to get the one kind of the files info more clearly.
I think that's a much better way of doing it, other than just trying to re-implement all these parsers, because there's enough nuance with them that I feel like you're just going to end up getting it slightly wrong every time.
Yes.
So yeah, just taking the existing one and putting a good API around it, that seems like a good path to me.
Where is that code going? The new parser?
It's still under the developing, and after the developing, we will try to merge it into the EDK2 Base Tools pipe module repo.
Okay, like the Base Tools pip module. You're talking about. Okay.
Sounds good.
If I have any update, I will present in this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Christine.
So I guess, Eric, what it comes down to is I think the C++ support is pretty good. It works for the most part. You can like control click, and as you've seen, probably it will give you the different instances that it could map to. So I think we wouldn't have to really invent a whole lot if you wanted to go down that path. You just have to build up the context information to be able to narrow down those possibilities to the right one.
Yeah, that sounds like most of the stuff is there, especially if Christine's can get all that stuff ported out to some more usable API out of Base Tools itself.
Yeah, and for now you can just use the build reports. Those are always accurate.
Yeah, the challenge with build reports is they're so they add like 2 minutes onto the build if you have a very large project. Just sits there
They
writing out
can.
the
yes.
report, especially if you include libraries and you include PCDs and whatnot. That takes a long time.
Yeah, it can take a while, but it's useful.
Oh yeah, I mean, so the problem then becomes you start to couple all your other post-processing tools onto that, and then your build becomes really slow because it's coupled to the build report.
Yeah, I don't think I'd recommend trying to like parse build reports necessarily.
Well, I'm at Microsoft now, but at HP we had done that with some of our capsule tools and other processing tools that it parsed through the build report, and so it was required to produce the build report in order to actually get a functional build. So that wasn't fun.
Yeah, that sounds like all kinds of greatness there.
Oh yeah, but anyway, yeah, I think Intel had done the same at one point for some of their capsule tools. So,
For capsule, I could see it. Yeah.
Yes, I guess because you're not required to have capsule, but anyway, yeah. Bad things get done with build report. Definitely not a great place to be.
All right, are there any other topics for today? If not, then I think we can stop here. All right, well, thanks for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.